So hello and welcome to Module 5. This first video is going to be a bit about Antigone. It's going to be all about Antigone. But I know you've had quite enough of Antigone. You should be working on papers still, though, so it's probably still on your mind, which happens a lot in this kind of class and in SLE, in fact. We'll move on to other texts as students are writing a paper about a different text. So these things will overlap, and which helps you see how the topics overlap too. So hopefully you're not getting tired of Antigone. Now, I had posed the question way back when, maybe it was in Module 2, of asking you to think about what is Greek tragedy doing for the people in this ancient Athenian community? Why is it that the art form that develops at the same time as democracy is Greek tragedy? And so what kind of play is it? Like, why is this? How might you start thinking about that? One is that it has a lot of serious conflict, of course, and there's so much suffering in these plays. And the events typically in a Greek tragedy lead to a lot of deaths. So why watch such a play? Now, I learned an answer to this question when I was a SLE student myself, back when I was 18 years old. And before I give you that answer, just think again about some of the details of Antigone in particular. Lots of suffering. Why so much suffering? Well, you could ask where that suffering comes from. And in Antigone, you could say one way to put it maybe would be that Creon makes his edict and he sticks to it. And so you could maybe say that we have the godlike king problem. Creon has all the power, and what he says goes. But I think you could probably lay some blame at the feet of Antigone as well, right? That she makes her choice, and perhaps you're more sympathetic to what she wants, but she also stubbornly sticks to it. And she knows that her action, too, will divide the community. That's one of the arguments Ismene, her sister, makes to her, is why cause even more trouble, more suffering, more pain. So each Antigone and Creon have their compelling reasons, it would seem. On the side of each of them, if they had to elaborate, Antigone would say, that's my brother dead out on the field, and it's just not right to leave somebody unburied, whether it's your brother or not. So she has two reasons, actually. The gods want burial, and that was my brother. Creon, meanwhile, wants to say that Polynices was a traitor, which he was. He defied the rightful succession of his brother to the throne. He caused a civil war, and things could have gotten quite bad for everybody. So he deserves no honor from us, Creon would say. And by declaring that as the new king, I'm reestablishing what we as a community most need, which is order and somebody at the helm, because that's the way their government works. So in the end, I hope you feel, even just from the 26 pages that you've been assigned, that nobody is totally in the wrong, and that it's a difficult problem to solve. And if they were going to solve it, they needed to work it out. That digging one's heels in was not going to be a solution for everybody. And so we might conclude that the way they both behave could only lead to tragedy. So what kind of lesson might there be for the audience? Why that play, those characters, for people in a democracy? And the argument I heard about this back when I was 18 is that the Greeks understood, the Athenians understood, that if this democracy thing is going to go well, if we're going to trade democracy for godlike kings, then it's absolutely imperative that we be sensitive to the concerns of other people, that we not try to be like godlike kings in relationship to those in our community, that we don't try to force our views onto those people. We can't just pit our needs against the needs of others like a contest and majority wins, as if that's all we need for a resolution. So you can't just win the contest with the most votes. You need to be sensitive to the fact that when a community makes a democratic decision, not everybody's going to be happy. There's going to be winners and losers. But we shouldn't feel triumph over the losers if we're the winners, that there's got to be some kind of sense of accommodation. So, how are we going to live when nobody is telling us how to live? Well, this Athenian answer was one, figure it out for ourselves with a system of democracy, of people rule. But also two, that can only work if we're sensitive to each other's needs. So, as a close to this little mini lecture, I have a thought experiment for you as it relates to Antigone. Think about how the situation might have turned out differently if Creon and Antigone talked through their deep and passionate concerns, if they were actually able to have a conversation, maybe even aired them out with the chorus or the community around them as a kind of community concern. What are we going to do about this dead body? What are we going to do about the need for order? And imagine that the chorus community voted on a way forward after hearing that kind of conversation. Might there have been a kind of compromise that could have come out of this? Somewhere in the middle somehow. Maybe not. Maybe it was just too stark a contrast between what each other wanted, and that's just the way it goes. Tragic. Or for the people in the audience, was this teaching them something about how to be with respect to each other when they get into their own difficult decisions to make as a community? So in the free write after this mini lecture, we ask for some of your thoughts about how that might have gone differently with Creon and Antigone, what you think.